Greetings, friends. It's Josh.
And I'm Ryan.
And we're here today again on the Dead Tired Dads podcast. If I could talk, I'd be doing okay. And we're back here again with Barry. Say hi again, Barry.
Hi again, Barry.
There you go.
We had so much fun last week with Barry that we just brought him back.
He needed to come back for a second episode.
He did.
So
I'm truly honored to.
Well, we really appreciate you being here again, Barry. It really is awesome having you. It's great having guests.
It is.
But I've got a funny story to launch us out this week. So last week we wanted to get right into our content because we had Barry to interview. We wanted to get right into that, so we skipped our funny stories. But I've got a funny story.
All right, hit us.
So a couple weeks ago at work, where I work in my office, they got upgrades to computers. So everyone got new Surface Pros.
Yay.
Which I was super excited about. I had the first Microsoft Surface that came out. It was called the Microsoft Surface RT, and it was awesome and amazing, except for the fact that because it was the first thing that Microsoft had came out with that was like that, they pretty much bricked it after a year and a half because it couldn't take any updates anymore, and they had already released a new one.
Yep.
So I was I loved having the Microsoft Surface. I loved it. I was super excited to get that I was getting, a Microsoft Surface at work. I hadn't had one in a long time. And I was really looking forward to it. So they had come in, they had been sitting in our back room waiting for the tech guys to come out and kind of,
Of course.
install them.
Yep.
And I'm just sitting there, like I'd been sitting there for weeks already going like, man, I could just go get it.
I can just do this myself.
I can do this. I am tech savvy enough that I can set this up. Like, please let me do this. And so finally the day comes, and this isn't just like you get the Microsoft mouse that's really cool. It's like this arc thing that like flattens and turns off and then pops back up when it's on. And it comes with the pin and like all the different things. It comes with all this stuff, and I'm just like super excited to get my hands on this, right?
Yes.
And then so the guys come in, they start out, and I'm like, they can start with me. I don't care. I didn't tell anyone this, but like that's what I'm like, they should start with me. So I sit, and the person who is least likely to be excited about this is the person that they choose first.
Of course.
Like
Naturally.
the person who is like the most apprehensive and like, I don't want a new computer. I don't like this at all. Like that's who
first.
That's who they go with first. I'm like, yeah, okay,
Naturally.
fine, whatever. I can live with that. Go with her first. That's okay. And so maybe they'll do me next. Nope, not me. They go to one of my managers next, and then they go to my other manager. I am the last person
Yeah, of course you are.
that they pick to give the upgrade to it. I'm just sitting there the whole time, like watching everyone, like being like confused and stuff. Like I just need like, and I'm helping them set stuff up. It's like, and like they finally get to me, and they're like, "You look like you know what you're doing." I'm like, "Yes, I do. Please
Yes,
give me the thing I want to play."
And did they say, "Oh, well, it's too bad we just got rid of our last one"?
Not quite, but it turned out that the next week I was actually on vacation. So like it happened on a Thursday. So like they're doing this all morning, setting these up all morning. So like Thursday I have my old computer. I get it for Thursday afternoon and Friday, and then I'm on vacation for a week.
You don't even get to play with your new toy.
Oh, but big shout out to Microsoft and the Microsoft Surface from my perspective, because I love it. I think it's great. It's not good for gaming at all, but
There you go.
it's a great work device. So
Is this where Microsoft sponsors our podcast?
this is where Microsoft
okay.
sponsors our
Okay.
podcast.
Well,
That's the next-
Microsoft, if you're listening, lower your minimum so we could do Xbox games.
There you go. Oh, Barry, come on.
Come on.
We want to play premium edition games on Xbox
Yeah.
too.
Absolutely.
Would love to do that. Love to do it. Their minimums are just too high.
Yeah.
Well, we give tons of shout outs to Microsoft lately with Game Pass.
Oh
like,
gosh, we did so many Game
we've done
Pass
so
games.
many, like since we like started doing Game Pass, like all we do is Game Pass games now, and
And
we
yet
review.
they just won't send us an Xbox. I mean, like, what are we doing wrong? Like,
It's an excellent question, Ryan. Someone should get on that.
Someone should get on that.
Ryan, do you have anything fun or interesting going on this week?
No, not really.
No, not really.
Very, very average, normal week for me.
Average normal weeks.
Yep.
Those are good. Those can
Yeah.
be nice.
Sometimes you need that.
Absolutely. So, well, that'll do it for funny stories then. Well, since we've got Barry back this week, so usually when we have a guest on for the first time, we always get a top 5 of video games. And like I said, we wanted to get right into Barry's content. We wanted to give him the floor in our last episode, but we did want to get Barry's top 5 games of all time. So Barry, why don't you hit us with your top 5? We want to know.
All right. Well, my top 5 is a top 5 plus 1 because it's too hard to narrow it down, and I'm sure there's some mixings and things going to change as time goes on, but and I'm sure there's going to be some people who go, how could you not pick this game?
Oh, yeah, of course.
It's my subjective list. So my bonus game, which would be probably number 6 right now, would be Final Fantasy 14. Just having a blast with it. Been playing since launch. 1.0 was absolutely terrible, but going on 2.0 and so on has just been nothing but a love letter. And Walker was like Avengers Endgame. It was just such a beautiful conclusion and story, and just it's I can't even say like it's the best Final Fantasy story that no one's playing because so many people are playing it right now.
Mhm.
But if you're turned off by the MMO aspect, you're missing out on probably the best Final Fantasy story in years. So my number 5 then is going to go to Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening, which is probably one of the few Zelda games that's rarely brought up in the top list. I know it's usually up there, but it's usually Link to the Past, Ocarina of Time, Breath of the Wild will always outshadow it. Wind Waker, Twilight Princess. But for me, Link's Awakening was it was the first Zelda game I actually owned. Played Zelda 1 and 2 and A Link to the Past over at friends' houses and stuff like that all the time. And I never owned, one. And then Link's Awakening was the first one I owned. So I just got to play it and, enjoy the story. And it's such a sad, somber, telling story that's so different than other Zelda games, and it just resonated with me. So I'm a big fan of Link's Awakening. Love that they did a remake, and I'm glad to see it getting some recognition.
Sure.
For number 4, I'm going to go with Final Fantasy 6 or 3 on the Super Nintendo as I originally played it, but it's really 6. Just a phenomenal story, phenomenal cast of characters. I know some people don't like the larger roster, but I loved them all. Kefka is the all-time, biggest villain of all time. He set out to the world, he'd destroy it and rule it, and he did. And it's just so good. And playing that game in like high school and like seeing, like him poisoning the water in Doma and like watching what happened to Cyan, like it was just so adult. It was just so hard hitting, and I'm like, wow, like for 16-bit sprites, they're doing it and they're doing it right. So I will always champion 6 up there, and it's just probably 4. And for the longest time, it was my favorite game of all time. But there are 3 games that have taken it since. Number 3 was going to go to Xenoblade Chronicles 1. I absolutely love the Xenoblade games, and I just thought of another game. Damn. So I got to do an honorable mention. So Xenoblade Chronicles 1 is it's just a game that I begged for. I was part of Operation Rainfall. I pre-ordered on Amazon when it was Monado. I begged Nintendo, please bring us this game. And when we finally got it, it was so fantastic. And replaying it with the definitive edition with Future Connected, it just brought it all back. And I don't usually replay games. My backlog is way too big. I usually play a game, finish it, and I move on. I was like, I want to play Future Connected, but it's been a while. It's been decades since I played it. Let me play it again, at least start it to get the feel of it. And I was hooked, and I couldn't stop playing it because it's just that good. So that brings me to number 2, which is a Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Again, I'm a big fan of the Xenoblade series. It's just so well done. And while I wasn't the biggest fan of the gacha system in 2, I love the story, even if it does start out slow. And if you've ever played it, you know it starts out slow. It doesn't matter. It ramps up. It gets you. The music is probably my favorite soundtrack of all time for any video game. It's just that good. Uh, I guess cheating wise, Smash Ultimate would now be the best because it has Xenoblade Chronicles 2 music plus all the others. But outside of that, it's just a game that I think people need to play, and I'm seeing more and more people play it because Xenoblade Chronicles 3 was announced and is coming shortly. So I'm like, yes, play these games. These games are absolutely worthy of your time. And of course, 2, I'm counting with Torna because Torna's a separate game, but it's part of 2. It's just an amazing story. Before I do my number 1, I will do my quick honorable mention, which just hit my head. I'm like, oh my god, how can I not include it? And I don't know where to put it because it is just, I love all these games so much, and that's the Legend of Heroes Trails of Cold series. I'm not going to say 1 or 2, 3 or 4. They're really just one giant game. And if you've never played the Legend of Heroes series or any of the Trails of or any other Falcom game like Ys or Tokyo Xanadu, you're one of the millions because Falcom is probably the best developer out there that no one's playing their games. Phenomenal, huge RPGs where the world is a character itself. Just yeah, it's amazing. The whole thing. My words can't do it justice. It's just the way they've transpired. It's another Avengers Endgame style thing, where they build a story up with the Trails of Sky series, the trilogy, the Crossbell duology, and then the Cold Steel, culminating in Cold Steel 4, which is literally Avengers Endgame, and just every character coming back and all references. It's just beautifully done. So that'd be my honorable mention. It might actually be up there. It's hard to tell. But my number 1 game of all time, hands down, and will always forever be Final Fantasy 11. And Final Fantasy 11 will always be my favorite game of all time because 1, it helped me through a depression. It allowed me to escape. 2, I've made so many amazing friends playing that game because you had to play with other people that I'm still friends with to this day, even though I don't play the game anymore. But most importantly, I met my wife playing Final Fantasy 11, and we've been together for over a decade now, and it's just the best thing that's ever happened to me. So no other game can ever come close to that, unfortunately, and it's totally unfair. It's there's nothing else that can compare.
There's no way to top that.
There's no way to top it.
I used to love this game, but now I love my wife. So
exactly. Exactly. So that it's unfair, but that one has to go to the top.
That's funny.
That's awesome.
I mean, that's really cool though. Like,
that's great.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like Ryan and I talk a lot about how we have, like, he and I both have very different tastes when it comes to gaming.
It's true.
And how that plays out really well with our podcast because we talked about this a little bit in our last episode, how not every game is for everybody. And so so for instance, like, I don't think either of us had any of these games on either of our top 5 lists. So it's, it's interesting, like, to hear, like, from people from, who just have different perspectives in games and who, like different games for different reasons. So.
Well, everyone has a favorite genres, just like movies and books and everything like that, and you could tell from my list, I'm a very big RPG fan. I love JRPGs. I love adventure games. Zelda is one of my favorite series of all times, and it's just one of those things where, I like other genres. I'll always play Mario platformers, and and I love Metroid, and I just finished Horizon Forbidden West. I love open world games, and I play on every system. So for me, as long as the game is fun, it's great. But there are certain genres that I'm not particularly fans of, like first-person shooters. As a kid, I loved them when they first came out. I played GoldenEye like most kids in high school. I was GoldenEye all the time. Perfect Dark, absolutely. Now they give me motion sickness as I'm approaching 40. It's like a whole different ball game now. And it's become so saturated. Back then they were rare, and now it's like every year there's a Call of Duty, and then Halo, and then there's 100 Battlefield, and there's so many. And for me, it has to be something really special, like Metroid Prime or Bioshock Infinite was good, stuff like that. For me to really go into the genre now at this point. But there are other people that absolutely love it, and that's all they play, and it's perfectly fine. So, I'm sure, now I'm curious if you could just really run through what's on your lists, because I'm curious if any of those would hit my top 10 or 20 or so.
Yeah, so like I said earlier, I think it was last week that I said I don't do art, like RPGs just aren't my bag. Like I've never, or at least traditional art, like Final Fantasy type RPG, like turn-based stuff, I don't do. I've mentioned that several weeks in a row now, but so my top 5, number 5 was Tony Hawk's Underground. Because I love and this is just for your benefit, because our listeners already know I love the Tony Hawk series. Like it was just so much fun for me. I've played that game, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2. I played it forever. Metroid Prime was number 4. Age of Empires 2 is number 3. Arkham Asylum at number 2, and Ocarina of Time at number 1. So
see, there you go. Like I said, most people will pick like Ocarina.
Yeah. Well, and it was the first Zelda. That was my first exposure really to Zelda, and like that was
a lot of people's first exposure. There are certain tentpole games. Like Ocarina of Time is a tentpole. Final Fantasy VII is a tentpole.
right.
And we've noticed is with games like that where it's like this was my first exposure to this series or this genre, they have that nostalgia to it, and they'll always hold it as a higher esteem, even when other games are better that came afterwards or came previously. It always has that special spot in their hearts, and
well, and
the way it is.
for me, Twilight Princess is close, like with Ocarina, like Twilight Princess, because of like it just did such a good job of
great game,
of kind of just changing the series, just slightly being a little bit, the graphics were different, I don't know.
Oh yeah,
Twilight Princess was just great, but Ocarina is still up there for me. So Ryan, do you have your list accessible?
I don't, but I remember most of them.
Okay.
There you go.
Probably in the right order, probably. I know that I had around 4 or 5. I had Mass Effect 2.
Mm-hmm.
Great series.
That's where I tried to cheat and hedge my bet a little bit and just say the whole Mass Effect series. Because I even mentioned on that episode that I'm one of the few people that I actually enjoyed Andromeda. So
did I.
Yes.
I enjoyed Andromeda too.
Yes.
It wasn't as good as the trilogy, but it wasn't anywhere near as bad as people said it was.
It was not nearly as bad as people made it out to be. It was a good game. It was an enjoyable game, and that's what games should be. They should be fun, and it was fun.
Enjoyable.
So
that's all.
So I had when forced to pick, I think I picked 2, but the whole series. I had Ocarina of Time 3rd. I remember that much because I think that's the only game that we
had in common. Was Ocarina.
Now, what's interesting is if you forced me to pick one or the other, I think I would probably say that I like Breath of the Wild more. But it's that thing we were just talking about. It's that nostalgia factor.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that was as a little kid, I watched my dad play Zelda 1. But my first time physically playing a Zelda game was Ocarina of Time, and so it's like it's a nostalgia thing for me.
Yep.
I think I had at number 2. I had World of Warcraft, and for me that one was although I didn't meet my spouse on there, so it's not that powerful. I did meet a lot of friends playing World of Warcraft that I talk to still today, and we play other games together now today. I don't play World of Warcraft anymore, but it's just kind of one of those things where like I met people all over the country and became gamer friends with them, and so it's like kind of holds a special place in my heart, I guess. I'm trying to remember what else was on my list.
Well, you've named 3 of 5, I think. So
yeah. 3 of 5, and number 1 was not picked yet. So I would hope you remember your number one game.
What was your number 1 game, right? You should know that.
My favorite game of all time. I have no idea what it is.
I don't remember what it is. Gosh.
Well, you talk about how you're kind of cheating with the honorable mention in the top six. Our buddy Ryan, our buddy Matt, he picked like the whole Blizzard franchise.
I was gonna say,
Oh.
he just said
He just
Blizzard.
said Blizzard.
in
I just
general.
like Blizzard. All the Blizzard games. It's like you
Oh.
can't do that. He can, but so
I mean, there are certain games, like I said, I'd pick Falcom just because every one of their games is just phenomenal.
sure.
There are certain developers out there that you can, if you love everything they put out. And there are certainly ones like that. Monolith Soft is another one, the Xenosaga, Xenogears. They're all great games. But again, it all depends on your genre. Some people might say Bungie, they love
yeah.
Halo and Destiny, and that's what they want to go with. There's nothing wrong with that. And I think
Yeah.
that's one of the fascinating thing when talking with other gamers is see what games you have in common, see what games you have different, and why. And maybe you say, I've never played that. That sounds amazing. I'm going to give that a try. And you
Yeah.
could discover, a new favorite game if you're willing to listen to other people. Unfortunately, not everybody's willing to do that.
Well, and that's one of the things that I feel like that we kind of get bogged down in anymore is this. You talked about it a little bit, and we've talked about it on the podcast before about how games will just kind of just cookie cutter themselves over and over again. And so like you get stuck, like gamers I think can get stuck in that, well, I play Call of Duty and every year I get the new Call of Duty, and like you got to get stuck in that pattern, and like meeting with other people with different opinions that, like you said, can kind of introduce you to those different things and kind of give you some ideas about different games and different genres that you can dive into.
Yeah, there's tons of things. Did you figure out your number one?
I did.
Ryan went to our tech department.
I saw that.
By listening to myself.
Ryan dove into. No, you
Oh, yeah,
contacted our tech department.
I forgot. I'm really mad at myself for forgetting this.
You should be.
Divinity 2 Original Sin.
Oh, there you go.
How did I forget that? Because I made that really bold claim that I think it's the best RPG ever made.
Yeah, I remember that now. But that was
That's a while ago.
This is like 30. This is episode 36. So like that was more than half a year ago, right?
That's true.
That is pretty bold claim.
I don't know what it is.
Now here's a question for you with that claim. How many of the games on my list have you played?
Let me look. I wrote them down. Okay, I have played Final Fantasy 14. By the way, you said something. You told people not to be scared of the MMO aspect. I totally agree with that. That's a great game that people should play. Don't be scared of the
very
MMO.
single player focused too now.
Yeah, you don't have to play it as an MMO. I mean, just other people running around, but that's a great game that people should play. So I have played that one. I have not played Link's Awakening. I know. FF6 I have played, but I don't know if I could tell you the first thing about it because it's been so long.
Doing yourself disservice.
Yeah.
Got to go back.
I have not played the Xenoblade Chronicles series. So actually, when you guys were tweeting the other day, I think I commented on one of the tweets about it because I was like, I can't remember either you or the Nintendo Fuse podcast or someone was mentioning it after they announced it. And so I even commented on Twitter like, so does that mean I should play these games now? Because everyone's excited about number 3. So
yes. Oh yes.
So I really do want to play those games. And then Final Fantasy 11. I have played that one. That's a good one too.
You're one of the rare that played WoW and 11 because when we played 11, we were like, oh wow, WoW's easy mode. 11 is hardcore. Babies play WoW, and it was like a big rivalry.
Yeah.
So of the games on your list, I have played Link's Awakening and not very much. So that's it. So
now, Barry, I have to apologize for Josh. It's a running theme on our show. We're constantly making fun of him. Josh doesn't like RPGs.
That's okay. I know. You got to start.
And I just
Well, you know what? There's so many good and do you like? Let me ask you this: do you like Breath of the Wild? Have you played?
Yeah, no, I love Breath of the Wild.
Okay, then you would really like Xenoblade because Xenoblade is an open world RPG, and while the battles themselves are they're semi turn based in the sense of like they're real time action, but you wait for your bar to fill up with auto attacks, then you do your moves when they're ready. It is not like a random battles. You see the enemies, you choose what to fight, and it is an
Sure.
open world exploration with quest. And Monolith Soft worked on Breath of the Wild.
Gotcha.
So
KOTOR type.
kind of like KOTOR, but
Okay.
fully open world, and the secrets exploration.
Yeah.
You come out beautiful
I could
fields.
100% get behind that, it sounds like. And Xenoblade is one of those games that I've thought about getting into, but it's also one of those games that I feel like that's going to take me a lot of time to get into too much. And I don't know that I have the investment. So
The first game, the definitive edition, what they actually do is they have you can turn on a marker, and I think it's on by default, that will show you the next main story objective. So if you don't want to explore, you don't want to get bogged down by side quests, because there are side quests, of course. You literally can be like, follow the yellow brick road, and I'll point you to the next direction.
Problem is I also have there's also a running theme of me not finishing games because I get caught up
That's
in
true.
side.
Of
so
course.
Josh doesn't like to finish.
I don't
games.
like to finish games. Although I've done better this year so far.
You have. I'm
We
very.
know
very proud of you guys.
It depends really on A, your time, and B, how much you want to explore. Like I mentioned, I finished Horizon Forbidden West, and I did Zero Dawn earlier this year. And Zero Dawn, I did everything. I like every cauldron, every quest. And then I was like, all right, time for the final thing. And I was over in like 5 minutes. I'm like, well, that was pretty anticlimactic. Like, I'm over leveled. I've got all this stuff. I didn't have to use half of it. I'm like, okay. So when Forbidden West, I was like, I got to that point where I was so over leveled, and I did a lot, but there was still other stuff I didn't do. But I'm like, no, I'm just going to go to the end, because I've seen enough of the game. I put 50 hours in. I'm done. I just want to see the end of the storyline. So sometimes you absolutely, you're going to get to those fatigue moments where you're just like, do I really need to spend this time getting this one extra little thing, like to get a potion that I'm never going to need anyway? And so that's normal.
So I'm gonna put you on the spot because I have not played the second one yet. Which one do you like better of the Horizon games?
That's an interesting question. I think 2 is very ambitious. 2 is more ambitious than the first game, and they set up a third game. I've heard criticisms with the second game because there's a lot of politics. There's a lot of tribes, and there's a lot of differentiation between the tribes and the different cultures. And some people don't like that. And I get that, because there's a lot of names. I couldn't tell you the names of all the tribes right now, because there's so many different types and different cultures behind them. And sometimes when they would say a name, I'd be like, which one was that again? I like where they're going with it. But I think I like the first one a little bit better. Like, the second one adds a whole bunch of stuff, like all new weapons, and I just used the standard bow and arrow and leveled it up, and I was just fine. I just beat it that way. I played on story difficulty. I just wanted, it's already a big game. I just wanted to see the story.
Right.
But I think the first one I like better, but I'm still not a fan of the climbing. And the second one does have, it highlights where you can climb, and I like that better. But after playing Breath of the Wild, I just want to climb everywhere. Like, I don't want to I have to go to the left here. I know when I'm pushing to the left and hitting the jump button. I'm like, why are you not moving? I have to climb down a little bit to go back. Oh, really? Come on.
That sounds aggravating.
Yeah, just let me climb.
Just let me climb. That was aggravating. And one weird thing about Forbidden West, like the first game, you don't really know where you are. You're somewhere, on the planet. I'm not going to spoil anything in that regards, but the second game actually gives you landmarks. And you're like, oh, this is this location, and there's that location, and I could just go between them. And I'm thinking to myself, they're too close. Like, the real world is much farther in terms of that. And like, why no? Like, you're trying to shrink it down, but it kind of takes, when you start introducing real world elements to a video game, it kind of takes away the suspension of disbelief. And it's like, oh, I know. Like, if you have a game of, like, I don't know, that's, we're gonna do real life New York City. I'm like, okay, cool. We're gonna be like true crime New York. You got to make New York City accurate. Spider-Man did that, like on PS4. They made it accurate so you felt you were really in New York City. It's like, this is New York City, and you have the Empire State Building and Freedom Tower and the Chrysler Building. The rest is all generic stuff, and it's like this. You can go from one end of the city to the other in like 2.5 minutes. You're like, no, this is not New York City.
Right.
That's well, that one is one that's, like I said, I played the first one, but the second one is in that big giant backlog of mine that we all have.
Yes.
Games I can't afford. Right. Well, awesome. Well, thanks so much, Barry, for sharing with us your top 7 game or top 5 plus 2 bonuses.
Yeah.
This has been great fun. We really appreciated having you on. Like it's awesome to like actually have a guest on the podcast. I think this is such a fun thing. So
It has been really fun.
it's new for us. So, forgive us for being
No.
and weird, but
I'm no, this is fantastic. I'm honored. Thank you.
so, we appreciate you being on again and coming back for a second episode. And Ryan, anything else for the good of the whole?
I don't think so. I was going to ask Barry if there was anything he wanted to close with or make sure to share before we close.
Yeah, absolutely. So right now at premiumeditiongames.com, you can get our Series 4 pre-orders. They're open. We have Wonderling DX and we have Rain on Your Parade. They're both open right now until June 10th. So it's $50 for the standard premium and it's $70 for the retro editions. On top of that, you can follow us on social medias at all social medias at Premium Edition and at Premium Edition 1 for Twitter. We have a Discord. We've got our own community, so please feel free to join there. You can follow me personally on Twitter at Hawk Hellfire, where I'm always talking video games and will always love to meet new friends and talk more video games with everybody. And Nintendo Fuse, you can follow us at Nintendo Fuse at Twitter and nintendofuse.com for all our news there too.
Awesome.
There you go.
Well, thank you again, Barry, and thank you for listening to this episode of the Dead Tired Dads podcast. You should do all of the things for us, do all of the things for Premium Edition Games, and like, follow, subscribe, do the things,
Do all the things
that we tell you to do every single week.
That's right.
We appreciate your ears, and we will catch you next time on the next episode of the Dead Tired Dads podcast.
Bye, everyone.